Porque es preciso, no piensen que me acalore, porque yo traigo el permiso de pasearme entre las flores.
This is a story about hope. It's hope that shines at the other end of despair, but it is hope all the same, the promise of a better day. And this hope comes from people who see that there are other people who have lost hope, people who have lost their jobs, their health, their homes. People on the border in Burma, and in Kitale in western Kenya, and in Bushwick or in Brooklyn. People with families and dreams, like you and me, who are hungry. And the people who see this can't help but ask a simple human question: why? And that's where hope and this story begin.
My name is Bill Ayers. I'm the co-founder with the late Harry Chapin and the executive director of an organization that was called World Hunger Year, but we've just changed our name to Why Hunger. And the reason for that is that it says what we do. We ask the why questions. Why is there hunger in a world that can feed itself? And so our focus has always been on promoting self-reliance. We believe that the root cause of hunger is poverty, the root cause of poverty is powerlessness. We not only ask the why questions at Why Hunger, but then we do something about it. And our niche is community-based organizations. We know there's no silver bullet to ending hunger and poverty. You have to do a lot of different things, and we believe that everybody has to come to the table so that everybody can eat at the table. And that means the government and businesses and labor unions and students and musicians and all of those people. But the main people that we work with are community-based organizations. A lot of them are faith-based organizations. Some of the best people in the world. They're all struggling. They don't have enough money. They don't have enough resources. They're overworked. And what we do is we help them. We help them to get resources. We help them get connected to the media. We've made some of the most wonderful friends and partners over the years with these terrific people who dedicated their lives to helping the poorest people in America.
Next is our keynote speaker, and I'll do an introduction for Olivia de Sutter. Olivia de Sutter has been the UN Special Rapporteur on the right to food since May 2008. Before that, he chaired European Union Network of Independent Experts on Fundamental Rights. That's a mouthful. And he also acted on a number of occasions as an expert for the Council of Europe and for the European Union. He also served as Secretary General of the International Federation of Human Rights on the issues of globalization and human rights. Here to present this evening's keynote address, please welcome Olivia de Sutter.
Thank you very much to Karen and to all of you for your presence this evening. It's not very fair. The words are unable to compete really with music. I am to say a few words to introduce, I guess, the prize and what it means and why it's important. And let me begin by saying that the first researcher who actually used the concept of food sovereignty is somebody from New York. He is Mark Edelman in a book called Peasants Against Globalization in 1999, where he described food sovereignty as a result of the onslaught on peasants in Costa Rica, small food producers in Costa Rica. But in fact, this is a domain, food sovereignty, which is not a theoretical construct. And theoreticians, researchers have actually been late in this game, which began with struggles of real people against injustice and threats to their livelihoods. And it all began in a small town, which is where my wife is from, which is probably the reason why I was invited to speak this evening. The town is in Belgium. It's called Mons, and it was in 1993. And there you had small farmers from the north and the south working together. How strange. Are they meant to compete against one another? They actually found that they were not competitors against one another. They were struggling against the same system, the same companies. They had common interests in food systems that would be local, that would not be subordinated to the laws of the market, and they formed an alliance which came to call itself the Via Campesina, and which is still the most impressive transnational movement of activists that I know. They gave us this definition of food sovereignty, which is the following: the right of every country to define its own agricultural policy according to the nation's interests and in consultation with the peasants and indigenous organizations, guaranteeing their real participation. But of course, the struggle must continue, because the temptation to see hunger just as a technical issue is always present. It reminds you of Mark Twain, who said, "If all that you have in your hand is a hammer, then all problems resemble nails." Well, that's a little bit what we see in international discussions. If all that we have are pesticides and improved seeds and machinery to increase production, then the only solution you have for those who are hungry are technical in nature, but they do not respond to their real predicament. So for making the question more complex, more difficult to answer, and for asking the real questions, I would like to thank Why Hunger and the organizers of the Food Sovereignty Prize. Thank you.
Viva la Revolution. It starts here, and thank you so much for acknowledging one of our longtime partners, the National Fisheries Solidarity Movement. Back in 1997, I had the honor of being around when an organization of coastal communities was formed called the World Forum of Fisher People. First meeting was in Calcutta. And it was really back then, in 97, when I began to realize how much those of us who feel like we're marine conservation activists don't look at what we're doing to the ocean from the food system lens, and how important it is to be looking at it that way. Because as Brett mentioned, when we leave that conversation out of our food system, we actually give the green light to the Conagras and the Cargills and the Tysons and all those folks who have already wreaked havoc on our land to move on to the ocean. And in fact, they've been prospecting out on the water for quite some time. And we're seeing their influence undermining coastal communities, and which are also rural communities. And we're seeing communities that are living in poverty, yet we see them as really rich communities because they provide us with lobster. One of the biggest lobster producing counties in this country is also one of the 5 poorest counties in this country, but we don't know that because we don't see it that way. So we're really excited for this opportunity to recognize NAFSO's work, which I first got to know, like I said, back in 97, but really didn't get to know them till 2004, late 2004, for those of you who might remember what happened Christmas Eve in 2004 when the Indian Ocean tsunami hit. And from that point on, the idea of food sovereignty was instilled in me, because here were people who were taking care of themselves, even living within a war situation, were taking care of themselves and no longer had access to things that were essential to them. And I remember getting emails from Herman Kumara from NAFSO, who couldn't be with us tonight because they were denied visas. But I remember one of the emails said there are no more tears left. And it really hit home to me, because here's a face I recognized that was really dealing with this devastation. And one of the other emails that he got, which really actually at first made me laugh and then really instilled in me what the problems that we're dealing with are in some of these communities. So they had a Western person of clergy that came to their community and was really running around ragged saying, I got to figure out a way to feed people. I got to figure out a way to feed the people. And Herman said to him, this is Herman's story, saying it back to us, we don't really need to be taught how to feed ourselves. We just need our access back. And that was the real important message. So of course I was really excited to know that Herman or some of the folks from NAFSA would be here. And even though they're not here, we're honored to be here, not only to talk about them and our relationship and the important work they do in terms of instilling food sovereignty in their own communities, but also fighting for the rest of coastal communities, because their fight is actually every coastal community's fight. Their fight against tourism and industrial-scale aquaculture and intrusion of so-called development into their community in the name of development, particularly after the tsunami, are the fight of every coastal community everywhere. And so I'm happy to introduce in the place of someone who was actually from NAFSO, Herman Kumar, who's the national convener of the National Fisheries Solidarity Movement, his brother-in-law Lalit, and I'm going to not say it right, I'm going to try, Randanshiro. No, I did it wrong. Please join me in welcoming Lalit to represent National Fisheries Solidarity Movement. You want to see that?